Hello, I'm Ruth, an Associate Professor and one of the lecturers in Human Geography in the Department of Geography and International Development at the University of Chester. So today I'd like to talk to you about different migrant groups. Primarily, I want to help you to understand the differences between different commonly used terms to categorise migrants. So the aim of this session is to demystify migrant categories. You've probably seen an awful lot of news headlines, whether through social media or newspaper headlines, which have a lot to do with migrants in different ways. There are some examples on the screen in front of you. These can sometimes be highly negative, sometimes they can be quite positive, but I want to help you to understand who we're actually talking about and where some of these headlines might come from in terms of understandings around these different groups. So we're going to look at 4 different groups: economic migrants, illegal immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. So the first task that I'd like you to do is complete the form that's about to appear on your screen to note how, at the moment, you would define each of the following terms: an economic migrant, an illegal immigrant, a refugee, and an asylum seeker. So now I want to start clarifying the definition of these different groups. So first off, an economic migrant. This is someone who has moved to another country to work. Sometimes these terms can be used interchangeably with terms around illegal immigration or bogus asylum seekers and economic asylum seekers, terms which don't actually necessarily mean what they sound like they mean. So simply put, an economic migrant is someone who has moved to another country to work legally. There's a form that's about to appear, which has a video about economic migration to Europe. Watch that and answer the question, and then we'll restart the video with the next definition. So an illegal immigrant is someone who has arrived in another country, intentionally not made themselves known to the authorities, and has no legal basis for being there. So somebody might be illegal and not know that they're illegal because they haven't intentionally kept themselves from the authorities. This is a common case, in fact, in the US, where there are children who are brought over as children from a different country and they don't realise that they're actually illegal immigrants. The video is going to pause now for a moment to take you to another form to watch a video about the experiences of illegal immigrants. Watch that video and then answer the question. And then refugees. So a refugee has a very specific definition. This is someone whose asylum application has been successful and who is allowed to stay in another country having proved that they would face persecution back home. So they've sought protection from persecution in their country of origin and they have been recognised as requiring that protection in the country where they've sought asylum. This term can be mixed up in a whole range of different ways, which I'll talk about in a moment when I define what an asylum seeker is. In the meantime, a form's about to appear. Watch the video, answer the question, and then I'll see you back in here in a moment. And finally, I want to define who an asylum seeker is. So this is someone who is fleeing persecution in their homeland, has arrived in another country, made themselves known to the authorities, and exercise their legal right for asylum. So a refugee is generally somebody who has sought asylum and then been recognised as needing that protection, whereas an asylum seeker is someone who is seeking recognition as a refugee. These terms can be intermingled between refugee and asylum seeker, where people are unclear what those differences are. But there's also outright errors sometimes in the media, where, for example, the term something like illegal asylum seeker is used or bogus asylum seeker. Well, there is a very clear legal precedent and pathway for people seeking protection from persecution, which challenges some of those terms that are used in the media. So hopefully this has helped you to clarify what the distinction are between these 4 different migrant groups. And now I want you to think just to yourself, what percentage do you think each of the following groups make up of the UK population? So thinking about illegal immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. For a moment, just think to yourself, I'll show the answers in a second. So these are the official statistics in the media about these different groups. So net migration, so that's the balance between those people leaving the country and the people coming into the country, accounts for about 0.42% of the population. You might be surprised by that given the amount of press coverage that is given to migration overall in the UK. But these are the official statistics and shows just how small an amount of people we're actually talking about in relation to the population. Illegal immigration, by its very nature, is difficult to know exactly how many people are in the country if they've come in illegally because they've not been recorded. But there's an estimate of 863,000. This was based in 2009, so it's a bit late data, but again, it's difficult to get figures on these issues. Either way, it's still an incredibly small percentage of the population in terms of 1.28% of the current UK population. Asylum seekers in 2018 accounted for 0.06% of the population, and refugees in 2018 counted for 0.19% of the population. So in the grand scheme of things, these are very small numbers of people, but the media and government, politics, is very much concerned about immigration and migration. So hopefully that has given you a sense of who we're talking about when we're talking about different migrant categories. If you've got any further questions or you want to talk to me more about this, then my email address is on the screen. Thank you very much for participating today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.